The elderly man shuffled into the courtroom, handcuffs glinting under harsh lights, his weathered face downturned. "Name?" the clerk asked. "James Carter, Sergeant, United States Marine Corps," he replied, voice trembling. Minutes later, Judge Emily Thompson froze, her face paling as she read his file. That name might belong to the man who saved her brother's life in Fallujah, giving the ultimate sacrifice. Type respect if you believe honor endures, no matter poverty or age. James Carter, 69, sat on the courtroom bench, shoulders hunched under a threadbare military jacket. Decades ago, he stood proud in dress blues, medals shining. Now, he faced judgment in shelter-donated clothes. The bailiff called, Docket 52A, City versus James Carter. Disturbance, trespassing, resisting arrest. James rose stiffly, arthritis and old wounds slowing him. Vietnam, then Iraq, scars visible and invisible bore silently through the years. The prosecutor, a young man in a sharp suit, began, "Mr. Carter has been warned repeatedly about loitering behind the Main Street diner. The owner filed multiple complaints. Unmentioned, James only sat by the diner's dumpster, warming himself by the kitchen vent on freezing nights. He never begged, never disturbed patrons, just sought fleeting warmth when winter bit hard." Officer Daniel Hayes testified, "Found him at 11:45 p.m. He refused to leave. James hadn't refused it, had asked for 5 minutes to finish a half sandwich the cook slipped him. Arguing felt futile then and now." "Your Honor," the prosecutor pressed, "this is Mr. Carter's third citation this year. We recommend community service and a 30-day no trespass order for the downtown district." That order would cut James off from the 5th Street shelter, his only warm bed, and St. Mary's soup kitchen. It meant isolation in winter's depths. "Mr. Carter," Judge Thompson said, "do you have representation?" James shook his head. His public defender was pulled to another case. "Would you make a statement?" she asked, her gaze steady. James cleared his throat. "No excuses, Your Honor. Just trying to stay warm." "Why that spot?" she probed, something flickering in her eyes. "The cook, Tommy, leaves food sometimes. Knew his dad from Desert Storm." "Your military service?" she asked, unusual for such a case. "Marine Corps, 1973 to 1993, Staff Sergeant, 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines, Iraq," James replied, pride cutting through his fatigue. The judge noted something, then paused, her eyes catching a detail in his file. The courtroom doors swung open. A polished man in an expensive suit approached. "Your Honor, Michael Evans for the defendant," he said, setting down a briefcase. James frowned, confused, couldn't afford a lawyer, let alone one like this. "This is irregular, Mr. Evans," Judge Thompson noted. The court wasn't informed. "A recent development, Your Honor," Evans replied. "I request a brief recess to confer with my client." The judge studied them, then declared, 15-minute recess. She retreated to her chambers. James turned to Evans. "I can't pay for a lawyer." "You don't need to," Evans said. "The firm of Harris, Evans, and Thompson is handling your case pro bono." James caught the name Thompson, like the judge. "Exactly like the judge," Evans confirmed. In her chambers, Judge Emily Thompson removed her glasses, hands shaking. 20 years on the bench hadn't prepared her for this. "It's him," she whispered, unlocking her desk drawer. Inside was a faded photo. Her brother, Lieutenant David Thompson, in Marine dress blues, arm around her at his commissioning. Beside it, his last letter from Iraq, worn thin from rereading. He described a firefight outside Fallujah. "If not for Staff Sergeant Carter, we'd all be gone. He ran through open fire to save a fallen Marine, then covered our evacuation. 2 weeks later, David died in an IED blast. At his funeral, a Marine told her family, 'Your son saved my life. I was the one Carter pulled out.' That Marine was James Carter. Emily had tried to find him after, wanting to know her brother's final days, but he'd redeployed. Later, the Corps said he'd been discharged with PTSD and a traumatic brain injury. Now, he sat in her courtroom homeless, unrecognized. A knock came. Michael Evans, her late husband's law partner, entered. "Emily, what's happening?" "It's him, Michael," she said, showing the photo. "The Marine who saved David." Evans's eyes widened. "The homeless veteran, is that James Carter?" She nodded. Fallujah, 2004. Same unit. Silver Star for saving David's squad. Does he know you? Evans asked. No. I took Robert's name after law school, and it's been 20 years. She paused. What happened to him, Michael? Evans sighed. From what he said, PTSD hit hard. His wife left during his last tour. VA benefits got lost in red tape. He did construction until injuries stopped him. Then job loss, eviction, the streets. Emily closed her eyes, recalling David's words. Carter's the best of us, giving everything for his Marines. What will you do? Evans asked. You could recuse. No, she said firmly. I won't let him disappear again. There's ethics to consider, he cautioned. And there's ethics in how we treat those who sacrificed everything, she countered. Back in court, Judge Thompson's composure was impeccable, though her hands trembled slightly. Mr. Evans, how does your client proceed? Evans stood. We request dismissal, Your Honor. Mr. Carter sought shelter from dangerous cold, a basic need. He had implied permission from diner staff to be there. The prosecutor began to object, but the judge silenced him. I have questions for the defendant, she said, turning to James. Your record shows service in Fallujah, 2004, correct? James straightened. Yes, Your Honor, 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines. On April 17, 2004, near the city's west side, did you rescue Lieutenant David Thompson under fire? The courtroom stilled. James's eyes narrowed, memories surfacing. Lieutenant Thompson, he said slowly. Good officer. Hit trying to save a corpsman. I pulled him behind a wall. He told me to leave him, save the others. A gray-haired man in a Marine Corps League jacket leaned forward in the gallery. What happened to Lieutenant Thompson? The judge asked, voice steady. We got him to medevac, James said, voice breaking. Heard he reached Germany, then died weeks later in a patrol. I've wondered if I did more harm saving him, only for him to die. The gallery Marine stood. That's him. Staff Sergeant Carter. He saved 6 of us that day. Judge Thompson struck her gavel. Order. The room quieted, tension thick. Your Honor, the prosecutor said, his service, while admirable, isn't relevant. The court disagrees, she cut in. It's entirely relevant. She set her gavel down. 10-minute recess. Bailiff, keep Mr. Carter here. She met James's eyes. We have matters beyond these charges to discuss. In her chambers, Emily's composure cracked. She pressed a hand to her lips, emotions surging. She dialed a contact. Colonel Harris, it's Emily Thompson. I need a favor now. 10 minutes later, she returned with 3 Marines, a colonel, a master sergeant, and a corporal with a wooden case. The courtroom buzzed. James stood instinctively at the uniforms. Judge Thompson removed her glasses, addressing the room as a person, not a judge. I must disclose a personal connection. Lieutenant David Thompson was my brother. Gasps rippled. James's eyes widened. 20 years ago, she continued, my brother wrote about a staff sergeant who saved him in Fallujah, running through fire to reach him and covering his squad's escape. That was Sergeant James Carter. The gallery Marine shouted. It's true. Carter was hit twice, saving the lieutenant. She nodded. At David's funeral, Marines told us of Carter's courage, giving us 2 more weeks with David. I tried to find you, Sergeant, but you'd redeployed, then discharged. Now, fate brings you here. She gestured to the colonel. Colonel Robert Harris, my brother's CO, has something to say. Harris stepped forward. Staff Sergeant Carter, the Corps has sought you for years. The Veterans Reconsideration Initiative reviewed your service. Your actions on April 17, 2004, saved Lieutenant Thompson and 5 Marines, disrupting an ambush that could have wiped out the convoy. The corporal opened the case, revealing a Navy Cross. By order of the Secretary of the Navy, for gallantry in Fallujah, the Navy Cross is awarded to Staff Sergeant James Carter. Your Silver Star is upgraded. James's stoic mask broke. There's a mistake, he said hoarsely. I just did my job. No mistake, Harris said. This is overdue. A voice from the gallery called. Attention on deck. The gallery Marine and others saluted. Civilians rose, even the prosecutor, until all stood. Judge Thompson, tears streaming, said, all charges are dismissed with prejudice. Her gavel struck. Court adjourned. The master sergeant approached James with a tablet. Sir, Your VA benefits are corrected. 100% disability, retroactive, with back pay, medical, housing, and education benefits. Evans added, our firm will ensure no delays. Tommy, the cook, approached, teary. My dad said a Marine named Carter saved his unit. I owe you everything. The prosecutor, humbled, apologized. James stood taller, dignity returning, the weight of forgotten honor lifting. Judge Thompson descended, professional distance gone. My brother wrote you told him. No Marines left behind while I'm breathing. Today, we keep that promise to you. 2 weeks later, James stood in a new apartment, VA housing fast-tracked. His Navy Cross and recovered medals hung on the wall. A knock came. Judge Thompson, out of robes, held a box. Just James is fine, Your Honor, he said. Then I'm Emily, she smiled, entering. She opened the box, revealing letters. These are David's. This one mentions you. James read, voice faltering. Mom, Dad, I'm safe thanks to Staff Sergeant Carter. He ran through fire to save me. Said no Marines left behind. David wrote you inspired him, Emily said. After he died, I started Veterans Court and housing programs because of him and you. James looked away. I'm no hero. Heroes never think they are, she replied. David's last mission was to protect civilians, inspired by you. He didn't die because of Yoha lived like you. Silence fell, snow dusting the city outside. I thought no one remembered, James whispered. It meant nothing. It meant everything, Emily said, touching his shoulder. David said a Marine's measure is what they do when no one watches. You lived that, even when the world turned away. James stood straighter. Someone remembered my name. Healing began for James, and those touched by his honor. Some save lives, but live forgotten. Honor doesn't need glory, just recognition to stand tall again. No one should be left behind. Comment respect if you stand for kindness and justice. Subscribe to share stories of strength.